All right, today we're talking The Cabin in the Woods. Another one of my favorite little horror flick things. Really cool. So here we go, deep dive. It's gonna go so deep. The Cabin in the Woods is a 2011 science fiction comedy horror film directed by Drew Goddard in his directorial debut, produced by Joss Whedon and written by the pair. It stars Kristen Connolly, Chris Hemsworth, Anna Hutchinson, Fran Kranz, Jesse Williams, Richard Jenkins, and Bradley Whitford. The plot follows a group of college students who retreat to a remote cabin in the woods where they fall victim to a variety of monsters while technicians manipulate events from an underground facility. Goddard and Whedon, who previously worked together on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, wrote the screenplay in 3 days, describing it as an attempt to revitalize the slasher film genre and as a critical satire on torture porn. The special effects, monster costumes, special makeup, and prosthetic makeup for the film were done by AFX Studio. Filming took place in Vancouver, British Columbia from March to May 2009 on an estimated budget of $30 million. The film was originally slated for release on October 23, 2009, which was later delayed to February 5, 2010 by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and United Artists, but was indefinitely shelved due to financial difficulties. In 2011, we can all thank Lionsgate for picking up the distribution rights. The film premiered in December 2011 at the Button-Umathon Film Festival in Austin, Texas, and was released in the United States on April 13, 2012, to critical and commercial success. It grossed $66.5 million worldwide and received generally positive reviews from critics who praised its screenplay, tone, and performances. So it made a little over double. That's nice. It netted, so that's like a net $36.5 million for anyone not feeling like doing the math, which is, I mean, that's pretty good, I guess. I mean, you know, I know in the last video we talked, in the Stay Alive video, we talked Hollywood budgets, and all I know is that they're crazy, you know. It's really funny because MGM and UA are uncredited as production companies because they gave it up. So that's crazy. We're going to talk more about Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon, who both worked on Buffy and Angel, the TV series. They were writers there and on some other stuff too. So from here, we get into the plot. Gary Sitterson and Steve Hadley are in a break room getting coffee, talking about Hadley's domestic issues. Wendy Lynn arrives and tells them Stockholm failed, and now it's just them in Japan who are left to do the job. Sitterson and Hadley remain complacent, stating that Japan is number 1 and has never failed, while they're number 2 since they always try hard. They leave for the control room. As Dana Polk packs for a trip, she finds a sketch of a professor she had been seeing. It is implied from her conversation with her friend Jules Loudon that Dana had recently dated and slept with her college professor, who later broke up with her via email. Jules' boyfriend, Kurt Vaughn, introduces Dana to Holden McCree, one of Kurt's teammates on the football team. They wait for Marty Mikowski to arrive, and they leave in their RV to Kurt's cousin's cabin in the woods. Before they reach the cabin, they pull over at an old gas station where they meet Mordecai. Mordecai tells them that they'll have enough gas to get to the cabin, but getting back, that's your concern. When Mordecai mentions that he's been living there since the end of the war, and rudely scolds Jules when she asks which one, Marty snidely implies that it was the Civil War. Mordecai insults Jules by calling her a whore, and Kurt throws money at him and they leave, but not before Marty pulls an insult on Mordecai. The group drives through an enclosed mountain tunnel that serves as the only entrance and exit to the woods surrounding the cabin. Once they enter the tunnel, a hawk is seen, unbeknownst to the group, gliding across the chasm that separates the 2 tunnel openings. So you get the tunnel, an opening here and an opening here. Here's the tunnel. Here's the openings. As the camera follows the flying hawk, it collides into what appears to be an invisible, electrified wall. The hawk tumbles down the seemingly bottomless chasm and out of sight before the group emerges from the tunnel, and they continue. The group finds the cabin and begin to unpack in separate rooms. In Holden's room, he removes a disturbing painting to find a one-way mirror into Dana's room. After he tells Dana, they decide to switch rooms, and the group prepares to begin their summer vacation. Mordecai calls the organization to give a deep monologue about being serious with the job, only to be laughed at by Sitterson and Hadley. Lynn tells him that the chemistry department is prepared and had even manage to plant chemicals in Jules' hair dye to make her sexually active. Organization employees gather in the facility control room for a wagering pool on which monsters will be selected. Sitterson takes bets and teases Hadley for betting on the merman, which Hadley really wants to see, but is an apparently unlikely scenario. They never win. Can't get the mer people. In the cabin, night has fallen and personality changes begin to develop in the group as they play truth or dare. A cellar door pops open mysteriously, remote controlled by the underground technicians, revealing a cellar where the group finds various strange artifacts. Ignoring Marty's suggestion to go back upstairs, they investigate the different items. Kurt nearly blows a conch shell, but puts it down. An intense scene plays wherein everybody begins fiddling with different objects. Kurt plays with a puzzle ball, Holden operates a jewelry box with a dancing ballerina. Jules removes a necklace from a bridal gown and plans to wear it, and Marty begins looking through an old film strip. They all stop, however, when Dana calls them over to read from a diary of one of the members of the Buckner family, the cabin's supposed original owners. They come across a Latin incantation at the bottom. Nobody but Marty notices a disembodied whisper urging them to read it out loud. Despite Marty's objections, Dana reads the Latin aloud, and thus unwittingly summons the zombified Buckners from a nearby grave. Affected by mood-altering drugs applied by the underground technicians, Kurt and Jules go off into the woods and begin to undress. The underground technicians focus intently on the exposure of Jules' breasts, raucously at first, but later soberly observing that her disrobing for the audience is an essential part of the ritual. Gotta keep the customer satisfied. Kurt and Jules hesitate to have sex, however the technician released a pheromone fog and successfully induced them to have sex. As Kurt and Jules are reaching orgasm, the Buckner family attacks. They stab Jules' hand and wound Kurt in the shoulder. They hold Kurt and make him watch as Mother Buckner cuts Jules' throat and eventually beheads her with a rusty saw. Meanwhile, in the facility, Hadley and Sitterson mark her passing with a prayer. This we offer in humility and fear, for the blessed peace of your eternal slumber, as it ever was. Creepy, fucking creepy. The underground technicians pull a lever operating a complex machine that pours sacrificial blood into the grooves of a stone carving. Marty is in his room smoking pot and reading a picture book. He hears a mysterious whisper suggesting he go for a walk. He's disoriented and cries out, "You think I'm a puppet, huh? I'm the boss of my own brain, so give it up." However, he relents and goes for a walk. Just outside the cabin, Marty unzips and begins to relieve himself, while Patience Buckner stalks him in the background. Suddenly, Kurt grabs Marty and urges him back into the house, where Kurt tells the group that Jules is dead. Matthew Buckner appears in the doorway and tosses Jules' severed head into the room. They push him out and bar the door. Kurt outlines a desperate plan for everyone to work together, sealing the house against intruders. The kind of practical things that a horror movie audience would urge the on-screen victims to do. Underground, Sitterson releases gas into the cabin that disorients the group. Kurt and Holden now agree that it was best for everyone to split up. We can cover more ground that way. Only Marty is incredulous. The Buckners begin to attack the house and everyone runs into his or her own rooms where the technicians lock them in. Reaching to close the window, Marty knocks over a lamp and breaks it. He discovers a spy camera was hidden in the lamp and locates the signal feed embedded in the wall. He pauses for a moment and exclaims, "I'm on a reality TV show!" Realizing they're on the verge of being discovered, the technicians prepare to gas Marty. But Judah Buckner attacks and pulls Marty out through the window. Marty puts up a spirited fight, but Buckner stabs him with a trowel and grabs him away screaming. Off-screen, blood spatters with the sickening squish of a trowel striking flesh. We're meant to infer something here. As Sitterson and Hadley pull the next lever to pour blood onto another stone carving, a brief but heavy earthquake shakes the area, confusing the kids and surprising the facility workers below. What could that mean? Mother Buckner attacks Dana in her room, reaching through the window. Dana is locked in and calls for help. Holden breaks the one-way mirror between their rooms and helps Dana get through. When the Buckner zombies begin to attack Holden's room, Holden and Dana lift a bed to block the window and discover beneath the bed a trapdoor. They call to Kurt, who is in his room next door, to find a way into the basement so they can escape. Holden and Dana climb through the trapdoor and into a room that Dana recognizes as the black room referenced in Patient Buckner's diary. Knives, axes, traps, and other weapons lie everywhere. Matthew Buckner attacks Holden from the trapdoor opening above, but Dana grabs a crowbar, jams it through his eye, and then stabs him with a knife until he is incapacitated. Sitterson flips a control switch that applies a small electric shock to the knife handle so that Dana drops it without noticing. Kurt appears from an adjoining basement room and leads the group outside to the Rambler, They drive off in the Rambler, failing to notice a bloody handprint on the door. Sitterson watches a video feed from Kyoto as the schoolgirls unite against the Japanese floaty girl and sing an incantation that defeats the ghost and reduces her spirit to a frog in a bowl. Hadley Sitterson and Wendy Lin commiserate on Japanese failure, which leaves North America as the only viable scenario for a successful ritual. Glancing at the monitor, Hadley realizes that the RV is about to escape through the mountain tunnel and that the expected cave-in has not occurred. They urgently contact Demolition and learn of a glitch and communications failure. Sitterson sprints to the Demolition control room and patches the wires at the last second to detonate explosives for the cave-in. Kurt is forced to back the Rambler out of the tunnel the way they entered. With the tunnel blocked, a narrow but very deep ravine lies between the victims and their escape. Kurt attempts to jump across the ravine on his motorcycle, intending to get help in return, but he crashes into the invisible force field and falls to his death. Hadley pulls the next lever. More blood falls onto another stone carving. Holden and Dana drive the RV towards the cabin, hoping to find another exit road, but Father Buckner, who had been hiding in the Rambler, fatally stabs Holden while he's driving. The RV veers off the road and crashes into a lake. As Dana fights to escape the submerged RV and swims to the surface, the underground technicians celebrate. Truman asks how the ritual can be complete when the footage shows Dana is still alive. Hadley explains that the Virgin's death is optional, so long as she outlives the others and suffers in the ordeal. Dana climbs onto the pier and is attacked by Matthew Buckner. Their struggle is displayed on monitors all over the underground control room, where organization workers have gathered for cocktails. While Buckner beats Dana and tosses her about on screen, various employees discuss overtime pay, hit on each other, and relish their success. Hadley is pleased with the outcome, but still disappointed that he didn't get to see the merman. Sitterson happily greets the demolition team, but they remain defensive about their near miss with the cave-in. They reiterate to Sitterson that it wasn't their fault, that the delay was caused by a power reroute from upstairs. Sitterson reacts with dread to the demolition team's comment about an interference from upstairs. At that moment, the direct hotline phone rings and Hadley answers in a hushed voice. He learns that someone thought dead has actually survived, and thus the ritual isn't complete. He turns to look at the monitor and asks sternly, which one? On the pier, Matthew Buckner prepares his final blow to kill Dana, but Marty appears and stops him. Remember what we were supposed to be inferring before? It was the opposite. Marty leads Dana to the Buckner's grave, where Judah Buckner lies in pieces, but still alive and moving. Marty confesses, I had to dismember the guy with a trowel. Marty shows Dana that the grave is connected to an underground elevator and surmises that someone sent the Buckner family to kill them. Various pieces of Judah Buckner fall into the elevator as they climb in. Marty, Dana, and Judah pieces ride the elevator down to the facility. Dana and Marty discover that the elevator car is a transparent cube that moves in horizontal tracks as well as vertical. They're startled by monsters in adjacent cubes. First a werewolf, and then a wraith, and then the Hell Lord and the Sugar Plum Fairy. Dana notices that the Hell Lord is holding a puzzle ball like the one Kurt was playing with in the basement. She realizes that the artifacts in the basement were a way of forcing them to choose the manner of their own deaths. Dana beats angrily at the walls of the cube as hundreds of other monsters and nightmare creatures, each in their own cubes, surround her in the facility's elaborate prison. Wendy Lin explains that her chem team treated Marty's marijuana to make him more susceptible to their mind control drugs, but the team must have missed a stash, and smoking it has immunized him against their influence. Hadley and Sitterson locate Marty in Dana's cube and send it down to the elevator lobby, giving orders to kill them both, Marty first. A guard confronts them with his own gun drawn, but is distracted by Judah Buckner's still moving severed arm. Marty and Dana subdue the guard and escape with his gun and Judah's trowel. Marty and Dana step into the elevator lobby, where the director speaks to them over the intercom, urging them to give up. She tells them that their deaths are inevitable and necessary, part of something bigger and older than they could ever imagine. As an armed security team approaches the lobby, Marty and Dana duck into the elevator control booth. The security team opens fire on them, and the two take shelter behind the control booth's bulletproof glass. Dana discovers the system purge button, and after a moment of hesitations, says, "An army of nightmares, huh? Let's get this party started." She presses the button, releasing all the caged monsters into the facility. The unleashed monsters slaughter the security team and soon make their way across the facility, causing chaos and killing everyone. Dana and Marty hide in the elevator control booth until flushed out by a dragon bat. They escape through the melee and into a large hole made by the bat that opens into a secret escape tunnel. The control room is the organization's final holdout, but Truman is killed by the Scarecrow folk when he detonates his hand grenade and Hadley finally gets to see the merman. Right before it kills him, Sitterson opens to computer padlock the escape tunnel and climbs down just as Wendy Lynn is snatched from above by giant tentacles. Sitterson runs into Dana, who accidentally stabs him. Dying, Sitterson pleads with Dana to kill Marty. Marty and Dana reach the ritual chamber, where they observe 5 stone carvings depicting the horror movie archetypes: the whore, the athlete, the scholar, the fool, and finally, the virgin. Dana realized that she and her friend were the victims in a ritual sacrifice, not merely to be killed, but also to be punished. The director arrives and tells them that the sacrifice is to appease the Ancient Ones, giant evil gods who slumber beneath the chamber and will awaken to destroy the earth if the ritual is not completed. Marty protests that the world isn't worth saving if it must subsist on such barbarism. But Dana understands she can survive only by killing Marty. She aims the gun at him, but a werewolf appears and attacks her, causing her to drop the gun. What a bitch. Marty retrieves the gun and shoots the werewolf, causing it to retreat, and then he and the director fight. Patience Buckner, who followed Marty and Dana from the surface down to the facility, somehow, because I don't remember her being in the elevator, and I don't know how she'd be able to fall. That's a pretty far shaft to fall down. Whatever, that's the only thing I don't see connecting in this whole thing. So Patience arrives and kills the director with a hatchet. Marty kicks them both off the ledge of the ritual chamber and into the Ancient One's nest below. Marty and Dana share a joint and reflect on all they've been through. Dana apologizes to Marty for almost shooting him, and Marty apologizes for letting the werewolf get her and then ending the world. As the chamber and entire facility begin to rumble and collapse, they speculate how great it would have been to see the giant evil gods that are about to awaken. A huge arm reaches up through the facility and bursts out of the cabin at the surface as the Ancient Ones begin to arise to destroy the earth. All right, so theories and opinions. I'm getting most of my information off of the Cabin in the Woods fandom wiki, so if you want to read more, instead of just listening to me, go there and they have tons of cool stuff, but I'm going to read a bunch from there. So one fandom user says, I read an interesting theory about the movie. The ritual is doomed to fail from the start. Jules was the virgin as a parent when she hesitated to do it until the facility tech released some hormones. Hemsworth was the fool. He acts rashly and without much thought. Kurt was the athlete. He had the college football scholarship. And Marty was the scholar. He discovers the facility and is able to deduce the intent. And Dana was the slut when she admitted in the beginning that she had the affair with the teacher who dumped her. And so, yeah, that's a very, I think it's credible. I'm not acting as shocked as when I read it prior to this, prior to reading it for you. But I was like, damn, I definitely need to rewatch this because I did watch the movie to have fun. And it's a really fun story. And it's just, I'm not really good at thinking further into things, to be honest. So hopefully this series will help me do that and see the other sides of my favorite stories. Okay, so here's something interesting. The fandom wiki has a breakdown of the ritual and the other ritual and the rules of the ritual. So let's go into that. The rules of the ritual. The ritual, it's a ceremony that's become necessary for humanity to perform since its very beginning. Long before humans existed, the great and powerful beings known as the Ancient Ones walked and ruled the world. When humanity first appeared, the Ancient Ones decided it would be more entertaining to let them continue their existence rather than destroy them, under specific guidelines that humanity had to adhere to. The ritual changed over centuries of time, as the origin rituals soon became mundane and boring to the Ancient Ones. As time progressed, the deities began to demand more complicated acts to appease them in order to allow the earth to continue being inhabited by humanity. At first, the rituals were simple sacrificial duties or ceremonial murder performed by pagan worshippers. For instance, Hadley rants that an undisclosed time ago, the ritual was as simple as throwing a girl in a volcano, but as time went on, the Ancient Ones began demanding more complex rituals. Soon, the necessity of completing the ritual and carrying on humanity's existence was taken into the hands of the organization, which stemmed from an ancient cult or multiple Ancient One worshipping groups all around the world, who united to increase the chance of being successful each year. So the main rules of the ritual is that it needs to be performed once a year. several locally adapted versions take place simultaneously all over the world in order to ensure success. Those who are being sacrificed must be young or youthful. Each location has a different set of rules that, if completed correctly, the ceremony will be accepted by the old ones. If at least one of the worldwide rituals is completed, then the gods will be satisfied. If all of the rituals fail, well, we're dead. So the different rituals mentioned in the movie, obviously the main center being the American ritual. Specific rules are the 5 archetypes. You knew we were getting to this one. An athlete, a whore, the scholar, the fool, and the virgin. The individuals are chosen for those roles do not have to be consistent with them, and if needed, their personalities can be altered prior to or during the ritual to perform their role more accurately. So, that fan theory is kind of out the window because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who does what in this scenario. A harbinger must blatantly warn them of their forthcoming deaths, but they must choose to disregard him. The 5 must choose their method of death by tampering with an item that pertains to a monster that relates to or prizes that item. The whore must be the first to die, as she is the most tainted of the 5. An optimal scenario was her stripping her clothes at least once. With each death, sacrificial blood must be poured into the stone tablets that symbolizes the individual's archetype, thus signifying their punishment in death, as was seen. And then the earthquake, maybe is because the dude didn't die, I guess. Once the virgin is at least sexually tempted, the scholar's life is expendable. That's an order thing. The virgin's death is optional, so long as she suffers. She may live or die and still placate the ancient ones. However, if she is to die, it must die last. She must die last, not it. All right, so we got the Japanese ritual. The ritual in Japan has a different set of rules given the different cultural background. The shown scenario bears a close resemblance to the film Ringu. So the Japanese scenario is a parody of the J-horror genre. That's The Ring for you uncultured, you who are using my videos to become cultured, so that's okay. That's just fine. Even if you're just listening. So it's a parody of The Ring. It seems to emphasize even younger victims for whatever reason. When the American scenario is a parody of the slasher, this is a parody of the J-horror, which makes sense, just to further cement into your mind that like they make those movies as their ritual, and we make our movies as our rituals. There's a special emphasis in having a homogenous group of young girls, usually. No adult intervention seems to be present, such as a harbinger. No nudity is needed, for sure. These are some movies we're going to have to check out and talk about. We're going to go on deep dives on some movie. We'll do The Ring soon. I'll have to rewatch The Ring. We'll do that. The Swedish ritual. As a part of their ritual, a natural disaster must take place. A large volcanic eruption is shown on the monitors that display the progress of foreign rituals, using footage from the film Dante's Peak, a movie we'll have to check out. As the current American ritual is a parody of the slasher genre, it's gonna keep repeating this. The Swedish ritual is a parody of the disaster film genre. No doubt disasters other than the volcanoes are also acceptable. Yeah, they just have to have disasters in Sweden, so whatever you can get to happen in Sweden, make it happen. The Argentinian ritual. The monitor dedicated to Buenos Aires showed a giant ape. The meaning that this ritual is a parody of Kaijuega. There we go. Or giant monster films. The American branch has access to similar giant animals, so presumably some American rituals have employed a similar scenario over the similar years similarly. Yeah, I mean, we have King Kong movies and shit, so, so I'm sure they have, excuse me. And finally, the Spanish ritual. The screen showed a burning building in Madrid, presumably a castle, and may indicate that its ritual is a parody of the Gothic horror genre, which, while no specific movies are cited, we'll have to watch some Gothic horror movies and talk about them. You know what? Why not? Let's talk about monsters. There is a list of all the monsters that were in this movie, and I think we should check it out. All right, so it's in alphabetical order, and these are all the monsters on the whiteboard that they got to choose from that we saw from the movie. We got Alien Beast. We got the Angry Molesting Tree. We got the Bride, Clowns, Deadites, Demons, Dismemberment Goblins, the Doctors, Dolls, Dragon Bat, Giant Snake, Hell Lord, the Huron, Jack-o'-lantern, Kevin, Merman, Mummy, Mutants, the Reanimated, Reptilius, Sasquatch / Wendigo / Yeti, which I'm gonna right there. I don't think, okay, so the Sasquatch and the Yeti, sure, yes, but the Wendigo? I don't think so. Just gonna say I don't believe that one. It's just not grouped in with the Sasquatch and the Yeti. They're not really similar at all. The Scarecrow Folk, Sexy Witches, Snowman, Sugar Plum Fairy, Twins, Unicorn, Vampires, Werewolf, Witches, Wraiths, Zombie Redneck Torture Family, and Zombies. Just, your run of the mill zombies. So those are all the ones that you can find on the whiteboard. They got all the monsters that are shown throughout the entire movie, through the visual companion, through the novelization, that are only mentioned in the novelization, which is funny because there's a book. I didn't know they made a book about this, but back to it. So let's see other monsters seen in the film and behind the scenes. So I'm just going to go through these pretty quick. These are all the ones that you see when they're going down into the facility and stuff. American Slow Walking Creepy Girl, The Ancient Ones, Balding Menace, The Blob, Boomer, based on the monster from Left 4 Dead, Bullhead Phantom, Cow Skull Giant, Charger, Creature with patterned segments of armor on its head, Creeping Shadow, Cthulhu Creature, Cyclops, Dark Spirit, Face Peeler, Floating Leech Creature, Flock of Killer Birds, Four-Legged Saddle Creature, Garden Gnome Boy, Giant Alligator, Giant Ant, Giant Ape, Giant Cat, Giant Centipedes, Giant Crow, Giant Deers, Giant Ferrets, Giant Floating Head, Giant Insects, Giant Lizard, Giant Millipede, Giant Owl, Giant Tarantula, Giant Toad, Giant Woman, Gladiator Gorilla, Hell Lord Minion, the Humanoid, Hunter, based on the monster from Left 4 Dead, Japanese Floaty Girl, Killer Robot, a KKK member, Monstrous, the Kraken, Man in Transparent Tarp, Mutant Girl, Mutant in Hospital Gown, Ogre, Pale Serpent, Pterodactyls, Puffy Tentacle Creature, Rabid Dogs, Reaver, wonder if that's from Fable, Savage with Hatchet, Slimy Horncloak Creature, Smoker, the Old Man, the Red Fiend, the Suffocators, the Warmonger, Tank Tentacle Thing, Troll, and Witch, based on the monster from Left 4 Dead. Couple of good band names in there. I'm gonna say it. I'm going to be honest, couple of good band names in that one. So let's talk about the filming. Principal photography began on March 9, 2009 in Vancouver and concluded in May 2009. Joss Whedon co-wrote the script with Cloverfield screenwriter Drew Goddard, who also directed the film, making his directorial debut. They've wrote it in 3 days, if you remember that from the beginning. Goddard previously worked with Whedon on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel as a writer, so they both wrote for that. Whedon described the film as an attempt to revitalize the horror genre. He called it a loving-hate letter to the genre, continuing, "It's a serious critique of what we love and what we don't about horror movies. I love being scared. I love that mixture of thrill, of horror, that objectification, identification thing of wanting definitely for the people to be all right, but at the same time hoping they'll go somewhere dark and face something awful. The things that I don't like are kids acting like idiots. The devolution of the horror movie into torture porn and into a long series of sadistic comeuppances. Drew and I both felt that the pendulum had to swing a little too far in that direction. Concerning the sheer number of creatures to be designed and made for the film, AFX Studios' David Leroy Anderson estimated close to 1,000 people were turned into one of around 60 different types of monsters. The task necessitated renting a much larger facility to use as a workspace, as a crew of around 60 people were recruited. The producers told them to commence work on December 15, 2008, ahead of the official January 1st, 2009 start date. They only completed the work by the March 9, 2000 production date because, as Anderson stated, we had nearly 70 people at peak, but in effect, we had 140 people because everybody had at least 2 jobs. It was crazy, but people had an incredible time. None of us are ever going to forget it, and we're never all going to be in the same room again. The underground complex, elevators, and the control room were all sets, but for several wide shots, the British Columbia Institute of Technology's aerospace building was used. Must have been big. Production designer Martin Weist referred to Stanley Kubrick and commented, "It's very high-tech, industrial, and it's a brand new building. Never been shot in before. I wanted the elevators to be without any controls, to almost feel like a glamorized freight elevator. The lobby I wanted to look slightly utilitarian, contemporary, and institutional. sharp, and almost characterless. A tie-in of the film with the video game Left 4 Dead 2 had been planned, with the game seeing downloadable content based on the movie's settings. I guess to complement how they used monsters from the original game. However, due to MGM's financial problems, the game content was canceled, but Valve allowed the studio to use monsters from Left 4 Dead 2 to populate the monster cells at the end of the film. And I think that's really kind of them. That's really nice. Highly critically praised by myself and by other critics. It looks like even Roger Ebert was a fan of the film, nominated and won a ton of awards. In conclusion, I think you should go see it. I can't recommend it enough. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you have, see it again. Okay, so the ancient ones or whatever come out of the end and they destroy the world. But I wish there I wish there could be a prequel or a sequel or something else. Like maybe somehow something managed to save it or something. One fandom user says, "You guys ever see John dies at the end? This may as well be Cabin in the Woods 2. The world destroyed by the great old ones just so happens to be a dimension or two over is all." So that's interesting. So we'll have to talk John dies in the end soon. I'll have to find a copy of that. We'll have to watch it. And then it'll be a fantastic time at that time that we're watching it. Like if you liked it, dislike. If you dislike, I am out.